Hello, movie lovers. I'm Adam. This is Does It Hold Up? And it's Tuesday, so you know what that means. We're going to take a look at this past weekend's box office to see what were the top 10 movies and just kind of how everything played out. Let's go ahead and move right into those charts. The number one movie over the weekend, which was a little bit of a surprise to me, is Kung Fu Panda 4. New to the list, new to theaters, it took in $57,989,905. Pretty strong opening for a kid's film. It did knock down Dune Part 2 into second place in its second week. It took in $46.2 million, had a nice strong hold of 44%. Listen, it's doing phenomenally well in just 2 weeks. It's already taken in over $157 million. It's by far the biggest movie of 2024 up to now. We'll see if it can stay there throughout the rest of the year, but you know what? It already beat Dune 1, so victory, I guess. In third place is another movie new to the list, Imaginary, another Blumhouse horror, takes in just under $10 million with $9.9 million. In fourth place is Cabrini, also new to the list with $7,168,520. And Bob Marley's One Love drops to fifth place in its fourth week with just over $4 million, a nice hold of 45%, and it is inching towards $90 million overall. In sixth place is Ordinary Angels in its third week. I'm actually surprised this movie's still in the top 10. This isn't a movie I've heard anybody talk about. This isn't a movie that got a lot of marketing. Nobody even knew it was coming out. So for it to still be in the top 10 in its third week is kind of crazy. I thought this would be like a 1 week it's there and then it's gone and we never talk about it again. I like to be proven wrong. But it did take in just under $2 million, 1.9, 47% drop, $16 million overall. The best movie of 2024 dropped all the way to seventh place, and I say that tongue-in-cheek. Madam Web, in its fourth week, only takes in $1.1 million, another 65% drop, $42.6 million overall, and we're going to talk more about that a little bit later in the show. In eighth place is Migration, still hanging on very well in its 12th week in theaters. It's made just over $1 million, another 58% drop, but it's $125.2 million so far, and I'm pretty sure Illumination is very happy with that. New to the list is the ninth place movie called YOLO. I don't get it either. It only took in $827,632, but that was good enough for that ninth place. And then The Chosen, episodes 7 and 8, falls to 10th place in its second week, a 77% drop from the first week. It took in $744,774, but the movie so far, I should say the 2 TV episodes so far, have taken in $6.5 million. 4 movies fell out of the top 10 this past weekend. The first one was Demon Slayer after just 2 weeks. Then we had Argylle after 5 weeks. The Beekeeper after a very strong and impressive 8 weeks. And Wonka, 12 weeks in theaters. Very impressive for a movie I didn't care for. Let's go ahead and take a look at the top 10 movies of 2024. In first place, no surprise, is Dune Part 2. Jumps up 2 spots with that $157 million. Bob Marley stays in second. Wonka gets dropped all the way to third. 4, 5, 6, and 7 are all the same. Mean Girls, Migration, The Beekeeper, and Anyone But You. In 8th place, new to the top 10, is Kung Fu Panda 4. Its opening weekend is good enough for that 8th place, which means Aquaman 2 and Argylle drop to 9th and 10th. What movie fell out of the top 10 this week? No surprise here, it's Madam Web. The fact that it was even in the yearly top 10 for a week is impressive enough. So I said we were going to talk about Madam Web a little bit more, and we're going to do that right now. This is part of that Sony Spiderverse, which doesn't have Spider-Man in it, so the fact that we keep calling it the Spiderverse is really weird. This is just Sony's villain Marvel verse. I don't know what to call it, but we gotta stop calling it the Spider-Verse. It doesn't have Spider-Man. but I wanted to take a look at the 4 movies they've released so far and how they stack up to each other throughout their first 4 weeks in theaters. So here's the 4 movies we're going to take a look at. Venom, Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage, Morbius, and Madam Web. I know what you're saying. How did they make these 4 drastically different, all bad movies? Well, the Venom movies aren't too bad, I guess. But Morbius and Madam Web, absolute disasters. But let's go ahead and take a look at 2 new charts to the show this week. First one we're going to take a look at is Sony Spiderverse total gross through 4 weeks for those 4 movies. So as you can see here, the 2 Venom movies, the dark blue line and the red line, are very close to each other. They both opened up over that $80 million mark, and by the end of the 4th week, they were just above $180 million. That's massively impressive in just 4 weeks. Then the last 2 movies, Morbius and Madam Web, the green line and the blue line, show that maybe Venom was just a fluke, or maybe Tom Hardy is really just that impressive. Taking a look at Morbius's green line, it opened just under 40 million. By its 4th week, it had gotten to about 70 million. Madam Web, on the other hand, as you know, we're going to say it opened up to 23 million. As you can see, it's a little above that $20 million line. And that's because it opened up on Valentine's Day, which was a Wednesday. And we're going to include that in its opening weekend gross. And by the end of that 4th week, it's barely crossed $40 million. Huge difference between the first 2 that Sony released, the Venom movies, and the last 2 that Sony released. Whoever took over and started making these new movies, you're an idiot. And you're terrible at your job, and they should probably replace you by now. I'm free. Give me a call. I'll settle this. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Sony Spiderverse opening, or not opening, but the first 4 weekends. How much did they make per weekend? And as you can see, the chart actually gets a lot closer by that 4th week when we do it by just how much they made over the weekend. So in week 1, the dark blue Venom line opened up to just over $80 million. Venom 2 opened up to $90 million. Morbius opened at $39 million, just under 40, and Madam Web opened up to just $15 million. We're not going to include here, because it's unfair, we're not going to include that gross from Valentine's Day leading into the weekend. By the 2nd week, you can see both Venom movies had a massive drop to below $40 million. Morbius dropped to just above $10 million, and Madam Web dropped significantly. By the 3rd week, you can see they're really starting to come together here. Really starting to come together. Both Venom movies are under $20 million, and Morbius and Madam Web are very close to each other, around $5 million. And then in the 4th week, the chart has really collapsed on itself. Both Venom movies, interesting how both Venom movies followed the same exact projection path, and so did the 2 terrible movies of Morbius and Madam Web. I did not expect the line graphs to look this close to each other, but by the 4th week, both Venom movies dropped to around $10 million, still respectable considering, Madam Web only opened up to 15, and Madam Web and Morbius dropped to just a few million each, 2-3 million. But if we take a look at this graph, look at that endpoint of week 4. Even the Venom movies still had dropped significantly by that 4th week to the point that they are near what Morbius and Madam Web are making, which is just insane considering where they opened up to and how much money they would go on to make total at the box office. They were apparently very front-loaded compared to these other 2 movies. Because if you took those 2 Venom movies and you moved them down to about where Morbius opened up, their line graphs would look exactly the same. They have the same exact trajectory of big drop 2nd week and then just continuously falling little by little. And they're meeting. And it's just in 4 weeks. It's not like Venom played for, the first Venom movie played for 16 weeks, the second Venom movie played for 17 weeks, and yet by week 4, they were already matching what the new Sony movies are doing. So it's not that the new Sony movies are doing poorly when we're looking at the long run, it's just they're not opening high enough to sustain them the way that the Venom movies did. So that was just really interesting to look at. I thought these graphs were going to look completely different But, this is why we check out the numbers, because they're going to tell us things that maybe we didn't quite notice at the time. Okay, that's it for charts this week, because this past Sunday was the 96th Academy Awards, also known as the Oscars, and my partner here on the channel, Emily, every year we watch it together, we do our picks, we see who did the best. So we're actually going to do a quick Oscar recap and let you know which one of us picked the most amount of winners. So she's going to be joining me right now. All right, Emily, welcome to the show. You haven't been on a box office episode in quite some time.
I have not.
So, welcome in. Let's talk about some of the big moments. Opening monologue by Jimmy Kimmel was good. I think there were parts of it that were maybe a little too much. Like, I know you weren't a fan of the RDJ jokes.
Not at all. It just went a little too much, a little too long, a little too hard. It was just left a bad taste in my mouth.
Now, were you not a fan of the jokes, or were you not a fan of the way Downey Jr. reacted to the jokes? If he had reacted better, do the jokes play better?
I don't know.
Okay.
I thought they were a little too crass to begin with, and the fact that RDJ did not play along really was just like, ooh.
So here's the funny thing. So over the years, I've become less and less of an RDJ fan because I think he's just kind of a prick. But, that's just one man's opinion. You can think whatever you want about him. But almost every single joke told in that opening monologue had to be cleared by the person the joke was about. So if the host never just pulls a joke out of his ass to make fun of somebody like that without that person knowing. Like, that's so uncalled for, and it just never happens. So RDJ knew these jokes were coming, and he still acted like that to make Jimmy Kimmel look like an asshole.
Yeah.
Not okay.
Yeah. He's just becoming like a rude Tony Stark. Like, you don't have quite the charm that he does.
Yeah. You're not quite there,
yeah.
Even though you want to be. The rest of the opening monologue, I thought, worked really well. What were some of the highlights for you throughout the Oscars?
Obviously, John Cena was a huge highlight for me. His whole bit had me dying.
So if you guys didn't watch the show, you've probably seen the clips. They're everywhere. John Cena gave away the Oscar for Best Costume Design, but the way they did it was he was going to be a streaker running across the stage, but he chose not to do it at the last minute. But he did come out on stage naked, just holding the envelope in front of him to block everything out. And then by the time the nominees were read off, he was wearing one of the curtains to cover up. And it was actually really good because it showed how important costumes are. That this isn't just something to overlook, even though every day we see clothes. Once you take them away, it changes everything.
I thought it was a masterful way to explain costuming while also being really funny and entertaining.
Yeah, for sure. I wish the Oscars would do more of this.
Yeah.
What were some of the other highlights for you?
The Kate McKinnon and Steven Spielberg bit, where they were reading off talking about documentaries, and Kate McKinnon pretended that Jurassic Park was a documentary. It went through a whole bit, ended up saying, is Jeff Goldblum real? He's like, no. He's like, well, where have I been sending my tasteful nudes? And it cuts to Steven Spielberg just going... It was so funny, and it's like, you see Steven Spielberg, and you're like...
Stoic, masterful director, shows
yes.
no emotion.
And yet he's playing along with this masterfully, by the way. He was just acting so well, and I'm like...
It was, what a great piece by Kate McKinnon. America Ferrera was the other person she was talking to. She was good in this moment, but Kate McKinnon is one of the funniest people to watch do pretty much anything.
Yeah.
And Hollywood needs to get on board the Kate McKinnon train and just start putting her in more things because she's hilarious. And this bit was amazing.
So good.
Let's go ahead and talk about one of the winners that I actually really loved their speech. There were some great speeches tonight, but the highlight of the night were two for me. The first one was Cord Jefferson, who won Best Adapted Screenplay for American Fiction. His speech was so good. He brought up the point of it's a risk to do the movie that is American fiction, but it's also a risk to do a $200 million movie, as we're seeing with Dune Part 2. Yes, it's made $157 million so far, but when you factor in that it's a $200+ million budget just to make the movie and another $100 million to promote the movie, it's still way behind where it needs to be.
Yeah.
So huge risk. So I loved when he came out and he was like, that's a risk. Maybe don't make $200 million movies. Well, still do that. But in the meantime, take $200 million and make 20 $10 million movies. Make 40 $5 million movies. And that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Just amazing. What a poignant piece to make. We've been talking about it for years. Hollywood focuses too much on spectacle, these big, huge movies. The middle budget movies are going away. The low budget movies are going away. And yet some of those are amazing.
Some of them are the best, especially when you get to like horror and thriller.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to be all out crazy for those to work. You just need a good story and you need to give people a shot.
But it's also such a good point too, because Cord Jefferson, unfortunately, and maybe in the future he will be, probably not somebody the studios are going to reach out to be like, write and help make this $200 million movie. But they will take a chance on him on a $5 million movie. But that opens up, if they're going to do more $5 million movies, that opens up for new, exciting screenwriters, new, exciting filmmakers to actually come in and have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
You're not handing somebody fresh out of college a $200 million movie, but you might hand them a $5 million movie.
Yeah.
So I love that speech. The other speech I really want to touch upon is Best Feature-Length Documentary, which went to 20 Days in Mariupol. The speech was incredible. It was heartfelt. It was genuine. It is 100% the first time I have ever heard a director say, I wish I didn't win this award.
It's the one time that I think bringing up politics was like super poignant, was the fact that he says, if I could give this back to not have what happened to my country happen,
mm-hmm.
I would in an instant.
Yep.
And that is saying something, because you could tell he felt something in the moment getting an award for that movie, but it makes sense. Yeah, I would trade all of this away.
Yeah.
So that so many people wouldn't have to die or suffer.
Yeah, because he's from the Ukraine, and the documentary is about the first 20 days of Russia invading the Ukraine. And he's just like, I could give it all back if this just never happened. That was such a sweet, heartfelt, pure moment. And the whole crowd ended up giving him a standing ovation. But it took a good, 30 seconds after he stopped talking for them to do it. Because everybody was just in awe and in shock of what he just said. And took a moment to, let it sink in. And then the reaction. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
Those were my two favorite speeches of the night. Any other ones you want to touch upon?
I really enjoyed Davine Joy Randolph's speech. She had some great moments of, you don't just have to be anybody in this world. You just have to be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very emotional speech. And you just felt it.
Yeah. Were there any shocks and surprises for you throughout the night? Emma Stone winning Best Actress was a shock to me. Because I swore it was going to go to Lily Gladstone.
It was not a shock to me. I called her the win. I thought hers was the better performance overall.
Fair. Lily Gladstone had so much momentum. She was winning all the awards. Everybody was like, just pencil her in. It's there. It's done. Write it in pen. Permanent ink. Get your Sharpie out. Write her name in. She's gonna win this award. So for her to not win the award is like, first of all, nobody can call themselves a genius or a master when it comes to picking these, because we have no idea. There's one or two shockers every year.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody kind of figured she was going to win. And then she didn't. So shocker for me. The other shocker of the night was Best Sound going to The Zone of Interest. Now, you don't like this movie.
I do not.
And that's okay. That's okay. You don't have to. But the sound design was really good. But I could have swore this was going to go to Oppenheimer, because that movie's sound design is spectacular. Zone of Interest is good. Oppenheimer sound is better.
I agree. I understand kind of why they gave it to them, because sound is just that important to that movie.
Yes.
It's pretty much the only thing that's important to that movie.
So those were the two big shockers for me. Everything else kind of went the way I thought it was going to, outside of the two screenplays.
Yes, those were shocks to me. I was not expecting to get
Anatomy of a Fall
over holdovers, and especially American Fiction.
Yeah, I figured it could go to Barbie, it could go to Oppenheimer, it could go to any of the other four, really. American Fiction was probably the last on my list to get the award, and yet I'm so glad they won because we got that wonderful speech from Cord Jefferson.
Yep.
So, okay, let's talk about some of the big awards of the night. We're going to start with Robert Downey Jr. winning for Best Supporting Actor. Did we like it?
No,
same. We all knew he was going to win. I think his speech was absolutely terrible. Yes, you were self-deprecating. We get it. It's what you've been doing the entire awards season. It wasn't funny. It wasn't heartfelt. He seemed like he didn't really want to be there, and that this moment didn't matter to him as much as it probably should have. And he made his own drug references. So it's like you got pissy somebody else did it, but then you did it. I don't know. It was just weird.
I know the phrase, act like you've been there before, but he took that to an extreme, especially when you see someone like Emma Stone get it, who has been there before and is literally just in tears. Mm-hmm. So it showed that you didn't actually really care about getting this award. So why should we care that you got the award?
Yeah, and this definitely just felt like a Lifetime Achievement Award for him because he was probably the worst part of Oppenheimer for me. I don't think his performance was really all that captivating, all that emotionally driven, or even good. Yeah. Like, I would have picked anybody else from that movie. David Krumholtz, I give him the Oscar. He was fantastic in Oppenheimer, but he doesn't carry the big name like Robert Downey Jr., so definitely a weird thing for me. Speech was awful. Mm-hmm. You already kind of touched upon Davine Joy Randolph winning for The Holdovers. Her speech was amazing. Congratulations to her. That was somebody that you could write in Sharpie as well. We all knew she was going to win. Then we get the two best actors. Best actor, best actress. Best actress goes to Emma Stone for Poor Things. What a great moment. I'm not a fan of hers, but that speech kind of converted me a little bit.
Oh, definitely. Well, I'm a fan of hers, so I already knew I liked her. And it just solidified it. I love her relatability of like, my dress just broke. I think it was during I'm Just Ken, that performance. And it was powerful too. Okay.
Yeah, like you said, she had been there before, but you could tell this moment really meant something to her, even though she already has one of these at home. Mm-hmm. And that's what's important, is it needs to feel like this award means something to you so that it can mean something to the people watching you. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised you didn't bring up the I'm Just Ken when I asked for moments that you loved in the show.
I thought we were going to get to it.
Oh, no. Because I don't like song performances. I think they're all garbage. I don't think they have any place in the show. I don't need 30 minutes of my broadcast taken up by people singing songs that were in the end credits of movies that nobody stuck around and watched.
That being said, I'm Just Ken was the best performance. Besides Naatu, which was amazing, I'm Just Ken is probably the best performance I have seen on the Oscars ever.
I mean, you're wrong, but for you, yes. It's probably the best you've ever seen in the 5 years you've been watching it.
There you go.
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. Ryan Gosling got to be a rock star for the night. They brought out Slash from Guns N' Roses. Mm-hmm. That was super cool. Did not expect that. And I loved the correlation to when Marilyn Monroe, I almost said Marilyn Manson. He's never performed at the Oscars. When Marilyn Monroe performed many, many years ago, she was in a pink dress in the middle of a bunch of guys in suits with red stripe stuff under vests underneath. Gosling's the same. He's in a pink suit with a bunch of men around him in black tuxes with a red and white striped vest underneath. I love the callback. A lot of people didn't catch it. That's okay if you didn't. Took me a while, but it was amazing. Great performance. But let's go ahead and move on to Cillian Murphy, winning for Best Actor, Oppenheimer.
Yeah, that was written in pen as well.
But not just deserved for that role. This man has been spectacular for 20 years, and he always seems to just go under the radar. Nobody talks about how good he is. And then he gets Oppenheimer, and it's like, oh my God, guys, did you know Yes, we knew he was this good. He was this good back in 28 Days Later, many, many, many years ago. He's phenomenal. Yeah. He's one of the best parts of Batman Begins as the Scarecrow. Like, this dude can do anything. And it's so good to see him finally get the recognition.
Oh, definitely. And his speech was also amazing. His end line of, we're all living in Oppenheimer's world, so this is for the peacemakers. Mm-hmm. It's just like, you knew what your movie was about, and you used your platform to be a voice of good after that. I applaud him 100%. I thought he deserved this.
Yeah. Same. Can't agree more. Then we'll talk about Best Director, went to Christopher Nolan, another one you could write in pen. He gave a very good speech. He's been nominated 8 times, finally wins one. Good. I was hoping this wasn't going to turn into a Scorsese thing where we just wait until he's 60 years old to finally give him his flowers. I'm happy for him. He gave a wonderful speech. I know you absolutely loved the end line here too. Lots of good end lines in the show for these speeches where he talks about movies have been going for over 100 years. We don't know what's going to happen to them in the future, but the fact that you think I'm a meaningful part of it at all means the world to me.
This is how you show that this award means something.
Yeah.
That it's that important to you just to be mentioned in the history of this award.
96 years of giving out awards. He gets to be 1 in 100, basically. And that means something.
And that's how you do it.
It's great. And then we'll talk about the big award of the night, Best Picture, and it went to...
Oppenheimer.
Go figure. Al Pacino presented this one. I know you had a big problem with that because he didn't make it a moment.
No, he was just like, my eyes see Oppenheimer. And the lead up to it was awkward and nothing about it worked. It felt like it was taking a moment away from Oppenheimer because you didn't even do and the Oscar goes to.
And the Oscar goes to. I don't know why you whispered that.
I was trying to put on a voice, but apparently I did it very quietly.
Did you guys hear that? Okay. Anyway, yeah, good times. Yeah, he didn't really build it up or anything, but it's Al Pacino, so we kind of forgive him a little bit. I liked it because he was playing up what happened in 2016 with La La Land, because right before that disaster of La La Land and Moonlight happened, guess who had won Best Actress? Emma Stone. So then it all got messed up. So they were kind of making a joke of that. I don't think it played too well, but I understood it, so I liked it.
I didn't understand it, and I didn't like it, and now that you've even explained it, I still don't like it.
But he gave it out to Oppenheimer. They got up. Emma Thomas went up as the producer of Oppenheimer, accepted the award with everybody that was there from the movie, and gave a rather boring, mundane, and forgettable speech to end the show. Especially
after getting things like Cillian Murphy, Emma Stone, and
Cord Jefferson. And apologies, I don't remember the guy's name who did 20 Days of Mariupol, but...
all those great speeches, and then you end on that.
Yeah. So, overall, did you think it was a good show?
I thought it was a really good show. I honestly thought it was the most entertaining of the shows that I've seen thus far.
Yeah.
Honestly, it has only been like 5 years that I've been watching it, so I thought it was good. I think they're moving in a good direction with that.
Yeah, I've watched it for 20 plus years, however long. It's a really good show. I think it moved really well. Them starting an hour early actually helped because they ended early, actually. Normally, they only book out 3 hours for the show, and then it ends up going like 3 hours and 40 minutes or whatever. But they booked out 3.5 hours because they knew they were going to run over, and then somehow ended up 5 minutes early, which is crazy because they also started 5 minutes late.
Yeah.
So, overall, good show, a lot of deserving winners, a few surprises, and the biggest surprise of the night, though, went to Emily. Because in our brackets, she picked
17 winners out of 23.
And I only got 15.
I had more faith in Poor Things.
I did not. Poor Things won a ton of the production design, costume, those kind of awards. I did not see it coming for that. I thought Barbie might pick up 1 or 2 of those, which is what I picked, and failed at. So,
to be fair, you knew more winners were going to happen, and you just couldn't give it to them. Like,
yes. What was I made for? I hate that song. I refuse to give Billie Eilish another Academy Award because she didn't even deserve the first one that she got, so I could not pick it, and even though I knew it was going to win. But you did the same thing with RDJ, so we still would be 2 apart. But overall, good show. We did well on our picks. I'm a little upset I didn't do better, but, what are you going to do? All right. Emily, thank you for joining me to end of this box office episode. I'll be back again next week with another roundup of the weekend's box office. In the meantime, you might see us here on the channel doing a couple reviews for some movies that we watched. And until then, be good to yourself, be kind to others, and as always, keep watching movies.
Bye.